Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Funkatopia. I am your host, Mr. Christopher. WTF, as we like to say here, welcome to Funkatopia. I want to bring this artist on because obviously I've known Danny Bedrosian for a long time. And his wife, Patavian, is now here. And we are going to welcome them on board, both members of George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic. But there's more. There's way more to this story because we're not here to talk about that tonight. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me bring on Patavian and Danny Bedrosian right now, right here. Give them a warm round of applause. What's up?
Hey. What's up, Mr. Christopher? How you doing?
Man, I am so glad you guys are here. Where are you at right now? Is that your that background?
Yeah, we're at the studio, at our home studio, actually, where we cut this out, a good portion of this album.
I don't think I've ever seen this angle of it. You normally always have like a closer angle on your shows and whatnot, but it's pretty awesome.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, this is it's actually a new studio. We've been here a few months. I don't think we were here last time you and I spoke.
Yeah, probably not. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't remember what view it was that you guys shared, but it wasn't this one. But I'm glad. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Welcome. I'm so glad you guys are here because Danny, thank you for having me listen to this album because for those that don't know, this is his beautiful wife, Patavian.
Hi.
Hello. And Patavian is the granddaughter of George Clinton and also your wife. So you're part of the family, whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
But what's really great is that I love the fact that you two were able to kind of craft this brand new album called The Red Balloon, which we're going to be talking about tonight. But I kind of want to get a little bit of, since, Patavian, this is all about you. So I want to kind of give a little bit of an idea of, growing up in this family. When did you first, I guess here's the thing. When did you first realize, oh, Grandpa George is kind of famous? What was that?
A lot of the grandkids, we get asked this all the time. And for most of us, it wasn't until we were older. Like, we grew up going to shows and going to his concerts, and it still was like, oh, he's just granddad. Like, even seeing him on the stage doing his thing, a million people screaming for him, he just was always granddad. But one day we went out to dinner, and we couldn't get out of the dinner because everyone in the restaurant, they were lined up to get his autograph and to talk to him. We couldn't even get our order taken. And that's when it clicked, like, oh, he's somebody. He's somebody. And I think I was like 12 or 13, something like that. So all before that, he was just regular old grandpa. But then I was like, oh, you're famous. So yeah.
And how old were you at that time?
Like 12, 12, 13. I think there was another time where he took me shopping for school clothes. And, my grandmother, would be very picky. We're only going to get this, and it's going to be very specific. And my grandfather was just like, listen, just put what you want in the cart and just get it to the register. I don't really care. I'm like, Granddad, can I have this? I don't, just put it in the cart, bring it up to the register. So I literally filled it up to the very tip top. And I'm like, let's see, if he's going to go for this. And all right, let's just get it. And I was like, okay, I think he might be somebody. So, yeah.
Yeah, I always think it's funny because there was one time that I was out with my daughter. I mean, obviously I'm not famous, but there are people that do know me from the show. And we were out, I can't remember where we were, and somebody asked, oh, Mr. Christopher from Funkatopia, and asked to take a picture with me. And my daughter was like, what's happening here?
Right.
It's just really weird that actually happens. But so the next part I want to know about is how you two connected. Obviously, you're kind of performing in the same band, but what was that moment that kind of drew you together too? And let me know if you're like, this is way more personal than I want to talk about.
Babe, I'm gonna,
you know
let you do this one.
Okay, you're gonna let me do it.
I'm gonna let you
I
do
was
this
just
one.
irresistible.
And here we go.
And you know, she just no. No, to be honest, so we knew each other forever and ever, like where I was just Danny, a guy in Granddad's band. And then I also want to point out too, not to put you too much on the spot.
Put me on the
spot.
But
Patavian was basically raised by George. So grandfather, yes, but also
my dad. He's my grandfather, but he's my dad because he raised me.
So George's wife at the time and himself were the ones who were her guardians, her actual legal guardians, and who raised her and she lived with. So in a lot of ways, she had a different experience than a lot of the kids or the grandkids did. I think I just want to put that out there. But I was in the band for a million years before I was anything more than just one of Granddad's band guys, and she was nothing more than one of my boss's grandkids for a million years. And then I had already been in the band for 11 years when she joined. And the first day that she came, and again, we already knew each other for a decade, 2 decades. When she joined, it was like they were rehearsing something. And I have like a sort of music director role with George. Even back then, before it was like official, he would have me try to run rehearsals and things at sound check and try to get things together in certain ways with the rhythm section, or if we're doing stuff with the singers or whatever. And so I noticed she was going through it or just being difficult or something.
I was being so bratty, like, rehearsal. I'm one of the grandkids. I don't need to go to rehearsal.
Some Nepo baby stuff.
Right?
Some straight Nepo baby stuff. And I'm like the total opposite. I'm just, what's wrong? What's the matter with you? What can we do to make this better? Like I'm trying to like say it in a positive way. Well, what could we do, Patavian? This is our first day. And I remember thinking to myself, give me a break.
My
God. And that was it. But we developed like a camaraderie first as bandmates, and then we became friends, and then we were best friends for like years.
I found out he was funny because I'm not gonna lie to you. I just thought that he was like this. First of all, I didn't know that he was Armenian. I had no idea he was Armenian. So I just thought that he was just a corny white guy. He's like, I don't even really know you. How'd you get in this band? Like, and then as I got to know him, I'm like, oh, okay, you have a little soul. You got a lot of soul. And then like, the humor came out, the Northern, Boston came out. And I was like, okay, all right.
Well, that's awesome. And, what's really cool is that, we're going to talk a little bit about this, but before we delve into this, let's go into how you got involved with, and a lot of people who follow Parliament Funkadelic may be familiar with Candy Apple Red with a K, by the way. Tell people a little bit about how you got into Candy Apple Red and that project a little bit.
Well, Candy Apple Red is of course me and my cousin Tanisha, and Tanisha's also in the band. And we wanted to show our grandfather like we have talent too. We can sing, we can do it. And so when we presented him with this, we didn't start off Candy Apple Red, but when we told him like, Granddad, listen, we want to do this. We want you to take us seriously. He was just like, oh, okay, that's cute. We hadn't recorded anything. We hadn't done anything. We just said to him, we want to sing. And he was like, oh, okay, that's cute. And the reaction was just so like, oh, we got to really show him. Like, we got to show him we can do this. So we got down to business. We thought of names and tried to get outfits together and record things. And we, flew to Detroit to get in the studio so that we could, really be, just come up with something substantial to show him like, listen, we can do this. And you know, just we explored our sound and, you know, did videos, and it was really great. It was really, really, really great. And I miss it. I miss it.
Well, you know, but now you're back in the mix. So let's, you know, I've heard that, you know, you mentioned, I think it was on an interview that she did on your show, Danny, that you mentioned just in passing, I've been in and out of the studio since you were 5 years old.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what did you record at 5?
So she's on records that are out. Tell. Do you know? Do you want me to say it? What you're on?
Yeah.
So like Peppy the Pill Popper from Dope Dogs, and what was the other one? There was some Pack of Wild Dogs, I think was the other one, and there was another one.
There's one more.
There's another one with Eddie Hazel, I think.
And what were you doing on them?
Kibbles and Bits.
Kibbles and Bits. There we go.
She's doing like they had her rapping, but she was also singing. They found out that she could sing, and she could sing whatever note they gave her. You know, like George and Gary and all the guys were like, "Oh, little Patavian can sing." And she was tiny, you know. And I mean,
no idea what I was doing.
I wasn't there, but I just, you know, I've heard the story so many times. And she ended up on those records, and she's singing and rapping, and yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, man.
It's funny to hear those records because I was 5, you know, and so you think about being 5 and then you listen to the lyrics, you have no idea what my grandfather's talking about, and then you get grown. It's like Peppy the Pill Popper. Like, oh, you really had me talking about some things. Like, I can't believe that came out of my mouth. So it's always funny, like listening back, like, and how confident I said it. The Pill Popper, like, oh Lord.
I have to go back and re-listen to those with this new.
I'm getting deep at 5. I'm getting real deep.
I don't know what this question is. Andrew asked, do they know anything about Jimmy G and the Tag Hands? What does that mean?
Yeah.
You said so.
Yeah, Jimmy G and the Tag Heads is a group. It's Jimmy Giles, who was one of George's younger brothers, who played bass. And George produced some records on him in the late 70s and early 80s, right when he was getting Uncle Jam Records together. And for people who don't know that story, there's a whole storied thing about Uncle Jam Records, and you know, you can find out more, you know, in that book you just grabbed out. But you know, but basically Jimmy G and the Tack. But George produced an album on Jimmy G and the Tack Heads. That one's from the 80s, and it's funny somebody mentioned it because we're actually going to be doing one of the songs from that album, from the Jimmy G album, at an upcoming show in April. That's curating the 70th anniversary of P-Funk. It's 70 years old this year. So
now you guys know, I mean, Funkatopians know that I like these encyclopedic, that's the right term. Like all these books I have up here of prints and all these things. And what's great about this is I'm actually mentioned in this book. And the reason I mentioned is because when Danny wrote this book, if you want to pick up this book, by the way, Danny, you're not going to believe this. The link is still good. You can go to funkatopia.com/DANNY and you'll be taken right to Amazon to pick up this book. So that link is still active. I don't really take things down because I never know when people are going to watch these videos later. But he had already had a lot of this written, but was really having difficulty finding a taker as far as for publishing it. And it was exactly like Dwayne Tudor's books. And I was just like, this doesn't make, I mean, if, Roman and Littlefield, this is like the books that they like, you should go to Roman and Littlefield. And guess what? Roman and Littlefield, that's what it's from. And so I am so glad that you were able to get this printed and that I helped in even some form or fashion. But it's so awesome, and it's got so much information about Parliament Funkadelic from 1956 to 2023. Is there a second version of this coming out? Didn't you mention something that you were going to be doing like a revision or something like that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I do have to say always thank you, Christopher, because you are instrumental in in me landing the right deal, not just a deal or any deal, but the right deal for the book. So I always have to thank you for that. And it wouldn't have been right for me not to mention you in the book, or any time that we talk to each other, because you got me in with Dwayne, and Dwayne got me in with Michael Tan over at Roman and Littlefield, and those three people, you know, are hugely instrumental to it becoming published. So always thanks to you, Christopher, always. Yes, there is a second edition, but they're making me kind of wait. So in the meantime, because the book, I'm happy to say, was Roman and Littlefield's bestseller in 2023 when it came out, which is really cool because it was only out for like 2 months in 2023. So it sold really well. And now it's like among the best sellers for the publisher for their whole history. So they greenlit sort of another series of books. I have a new book coming out in October. And these books are going to be kind of a microscope in to very specific periods in P-Funk history. So the one in October, I don't want to give too much away, but the one in October is basically about 1975, being the 50th anniversary of 1975. And all you need to do is look up what did P-Funk do in 1975, and you'll find out some things. This book touches really deeply into that year. And so that's what my new series is going to be, touching on specific periods in P-Funk history and how they, you know, how they affected the world, how the world affected them, and all kinds of other really cool historical stuff, inside stuff, studio stuff, discographical stuff, and more.
Well, I'm excited. I can't wait to check it out. I mean, I love going through this stuff and really kind of getting the background information of some of the inner workings. And speaking of that, now you've teamed up with your wife, who is a fantastic poet.
Oh,
and you've taken her poetry and you've transitioned it into a musical version. I'll let you kind of explain this brand new album that you guys have released, called The Red Balloon. Tell me a little bit about this, how this kind of came to fruition. I don't know where you want to start, but it's
so, you know, we worked together, obviously, musically many times, both on the stage and television, and we had done compositions together and worked on albums for each other and all kinds of things. But I really wanted her to do a solo album, and I think she kind of was against, or maybe not against the idea, but just was fighting it a little bit.
I was against it for a long time because there'd been so many people, mainly my grandfather, who wanted to do what he did. And I was like, you know, my grandfather would be like, let me get that poetry. Let's do something with that poetry. I mean, for years and years and years. And I'm just like, you know, and so, you know, when Danny said it, I felt like, and it wasn't because I didn't think that my grandfather could do it. He can absolutely do it. But, you know, when Danny when he had the idea to, you know, let's make an album out of this, I just feel like it was kind of the right time. I was feeling it a little more like, you know what? Hey, let's do it, you know? So, but I was nervous though. I'm like,
Yeah. And we basically, you know, we really, really, really took our time on this, and this album began concurrently with the creation of or sort of the finishing of the book, as well as it was starting to be recorded the same time that I was finishing Garmier Caramel with the brothers Nalbandian. And
great album.
Thank you. And so it was all during that early COVID period, you know. So this was that one that we started during COVID that we continued working on well after the COVID period was over, because it was just the kind of album that I knew we were going to have to take our time on. And like, I knew I was going to get nitpicky with it. And so, yeah, I wanted to really work really, really slowly. So I poured over her awesome poetry, which I was already very aware of, but like I started going into it and like, which ones could be vocal arrangements for what tracks. And I had just gotten a bunch of tracks. I was doing studio work for a number of big artists whose names I'll leave out, I guess, right now. But but there were like tracks that were made for certain artists that I had that was like very kind of radio ready, and I really liked the quality and like the direction it was going in. And I had just done like a surplus of these tracks, and there was no way that they were all gonna go out, you know, or whatever. So like I decided in the end to save a couple that I kind of felt strongly about. And not even necessarily right away for Patavian. I just thought there was going to be something, but they definitely suited her, I felt like, and her feel and style. And like, I'm a synesthete, you know, so I'm like seeing colors in all composition, you know, and so like certain colors would like make me think of her, be like, oh, her voice complement that shade really well, you know. And so I started collecting these songs, these tracks, and this is years of work. And so then I started, you know, it was probably 4 years of working on just the music and pouring over the poetry. And then it was another year and a half or more of turning the poetry into vocal arrangements. And she still hadn't even really heard them at this point.
Yeah.
and then it was about a year, a little less than a year of recording the vocal arrangements themselves, her parts, and I also did some overdubs, but mostly her, and getting all those vocal parts down. That was mostly done the almost year prior to release. And so with that, you know, and then the mixing and mastering, which was 4 straight months of 6 to 9 hour mixing sessions daily.
That was brutal.
And I was just like, it was just over and over, like, I gotta change this. Oh, we have to start over, you know. But I felt really strongly about it. It was a passion project, you know, not just for Patavian, but even for me. And among my productions, it's really one of like my favorite ones because it's unique unto itself. It doesn't sound like anything else. And the thing that really gratified it for me, because we didn't let anybody listen to this for 4 years. We worked on it for 4.5 years. Nobody heard it. And then one day, George, myself, guitarist Kevin Oliver, Lige Curry, bassist, and Benzel Cowan, drummer, they were all here because we were rehearsing for another concert coming up. And they were over for dinner, and we were just hanging out after dinner. And so I decided to start playing the tracks. I didn't tell them what it was. I just started playing them. George stood up immediately, and he's like, oh, like, and he was just really, they were all really like really enjoyed it. But George was kind of blown away, and like he was just, you know, he told everybody about it. He's like, it's so progressive. Oh, I've been telling her to do this for years. I can't believe you did it, you know. And he was such a huge supporter of it and of the sound, which made me happy. That kind of gave me the like, okay, you know, I'm doing the right thing and taking my time with it, and we're doing the right thing in making it happen in general.
What's really cool about it is that, and just so you know, for those just joining us, you are listening. That was the voice of Danny Bedrosian. If you're listening on Spotify, our Heart Radio, as of tomorrow for the audio, whatever, that is Danny Bedrosian, keyboardist for Parliament Funkadelic, and he has joined forces with his wife, Patavian, to create this album from her poetry called The Red Balloon. It's a brand new release. And I know you guys are probably a little bit intrigued based on his description, but guess what? We are going to be listening to a snippet of every single track on this album because I want to get the background story, and I got Danny's approval before I even did this. And I wanted to kind of make sure that I spent time with each one of the songs and kind of, you know, pulled out some really good pieces that kind of give a really good vibe of each individual track, because I think it's important when you hear about a new album, especially as you, the listener, you're like, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe I might check it out or whatever. But it's when you get to experience it and you kind of get the stories behind each one of the tracks, it kind of endears you a little bit. And I'll go ahead and share this link so that any point in time that you are interested in if you're interested in picking up this album, I actually did the same thing for Patavian as well. I actually created a link at funkatopia.com/Patavian.
Oh, hey.
And this will take you to a page on Funkatopia that kind of shows the album and kind of describes the album a little bit, gives you a little bit of background story, and of course the ways that you can purchase it on that page. Because there wasn't really a landing page for it, and I was just like, Danny, we gotta give this a home so that or has one now.
Yes, thank you.
And I actually have to make a little spelling adjustment too, because that's going to make me crazy if it scrolls across the screen all night. All right. So, all right, we're going to spend some time with this brand new album, The Red Balloon. And let me go ahead and give my little scoop on this album as I spent time and listened to it. The problem with listening to funk music as much as I listen to it is that there is a formula, a lot of which is the fault of your grandfather, about how you absorb funk, how you listen to funk. There's a certain way, there's obviously the rhythmic quality of it. And of course there's the James Brown version of it, that's on the one. But George really did a lot as far as really kind of crafting the template for funk. And but one of the things I know about Danny Bedrosian, not just from his work with Parliament Funkadelic and standing behind him on a couple of shows now, literally standing behind him while he's playing keyboards, like right here. I think the last time I did that was at Sweetwater Music Festival when he had everybody on the stage and I was standing right next to you the whole entire time.
Nice.
But I also know, your work with Secret Army and some of that stuff. I know you guys you're actually driving distance from me next Friday. And I'm this Friday, actually. I'm really debating because it's a 4-hour drive and I don't really have anywhere to stay. So I'm trying to figure all that out, but I'm going to try to get to the show. But anyways, my point is, I know that how Danny is very eclectic.
Yes. Yeah.
So he plays what he kind of feels and what he's vibing out on. And I think he really took that aspect of it when he was reading your poetry, and he kind of crafted his music around the poetry. And that doesn't always lend itself to funk, but it did create a vibe. And you definitely, obviously, have been part of the P-Funk family for a long time, because the vocal chord progressions that you were doing, and this probably Danny's direction too, the vocal chord progressions that you were doing on some of the songs are very funkadelic. Very, it's, just kind of that weaving through, may not. And so that's the reason why I think it's important for people to experience this album, and hopefully they'll go to funkatopia.com/Patavian and get it. But let's go through this album. Let's start with the very, very first track, which is probably one of my favorite songs on the album for sure. The name of the song is called Eclipse. So tell me about this lo-fi masterpiece, in my opinion, Danny. This is it's really, really cool. Tell me about Eclipse and also the meaning behind Eclipse and the storyline.
The track, it's definitely inspired by lo-fi. So like lo-fi hip hop and all that kind of stuff. I was also kind of feeling a little Amp Fiddler vibes on there too, with the Rhodes thing, kind of mixing it. European kind of thing too up in there. Right. But it like you said, you put it very well. I was creating vocal arrangements, melodic, harmonic fragments and things that I thought would suit Patavian's voice. And most importantly, she said herself, she's like, I could never figure out how to turn my poetry into vocal arrangements, because to her, these are words that can only be phrased when spoken in poetic form. And that's another experience altogether. What we need to do is create the audio book as well for the poetry, because hearing her speak it is also another experience altogether. But but to give a lyrical connotation, baby, you tell them about the concept.
Well, Eclipse was a poem that I wrote when we were in our very early, stages of dating. And I don't know what I was doing to get the idea, but it was kind of like I wanted to take a different direction from usually when I write love poems. I get so deep with it that you really don't know what I'm talking about, or it's so complicated that you're not really sure what I'm saying. So I wanted to kind of lighten it up, and I wanted to just, I don't know, the idea that there's a man and a woman, and the woman sees herself as not as worthy to the man, not realizing her worth. And the man, she thinks is just wonderful and great and big and powerful. And she thinks that she's so small and could never be loved and could never be seen, and not really realizing how big and grand and great and how much she's, important. And so I was trying to figure out how can I kind of put that concept into a poem. And so Eclipse, that's how that came about.
Let's take a listen. It's actually the longest clip that I have, and it's only 58 seconds, but it's the longest clip that I have. So, but let's check this out. You guys are gonna love it. Here we go.
Dear son, I think I love you. Would you love me if you knew? I only spin around one, but they all spin around you. I can't really cover up the scars on my face the way you do. But you still think I'm beautiful. I can't really cover up the scars on my face the way you do.
That was a little clip of Eclipse right there. Yeah, man. That was like the longest instrumental part that I played, because that track is fun. How long ago did you write that, Danny?
That was like early COVID period. Like, I don't know, we probably worked on it from 2019 to 2024.
Yeah.
So this whole album is kind of like that. It was all real steady, just growing organically.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's just a good pairing for your voice too. So it was just perfectly done. All right, let's talk about the next song on here. There's 11 tracks, one of which is a cover. We'll get to that in a second. But the second song is a song called Rocket. Tell me a little bit about this track.
Okay. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
So this actually took the longest to write of the whole album. And I don't really know. I think this is the first one we did. This is the very first track we did, I think, for the album was Rocket. And at least it was the very first one that we turned into a vocal arrangement from poetry. So it was the first one that we transferred in that way. And in doing so, much like with the authorized P-Funk song reference, early phases of creativity on various mediums sometimes are not yet realized. So that could have just been a song for Patavian, as opposed to an album. So when creating it, I was probably thinking in that way instead of an entire production. But it's one that like I changed and messed with a million times, and it's super progressive. It's also the first one George heard, and it's what really kind of blew him away. He was just like, this is so awesome. I think he just liked the otherness of it. It doesn't really sound like anything else. It's got elements of other things, but it's definitely the one I probably spent the most time, at least with the track.
Right. And what about the poem itself?
I think I wrote this maybe in, oh my goodness, how many years ago? I know I was on the road, so maybe 2017, maybe around there. And it is a song that is giving a very dramatic take on how beautiful love is, but how very torturous it is. And it's kind of saying, like, I love the beauty of it. I love the way it feels, but I also recognize how torturous it is. And I'm willing to go through the torture. I'm willing to be just completely just taken through the mud. I love it and I hate it and I love it and I'm gonna go through it. And so it's a very dramatic take on that kind of love.
All right, well, let's take a listen. Here's a little snippet of the song called Rocket. Check it out.
If you between my pillow, you become my sheep. All I can do is count you over and over and over. And like, as your limitless and number these days, grant me understanding of how love can be so malicious and relentless, knocking me on both knees, begging for it to cease and continue. Allow me to love you without restraint now and be punished for it later. Let me uncover myself, unadorned for you. Assure you will take me everything I am and never let go.
Yeah, that was a track, a little piece called Rocket. And that was actually one of those songs for me that I had to like re-listen to a few times because there's so much going on as far as the intricacy of the vocal patterns in that song. And it's a lot of change ups. And that's one of the primary songs. That was the first song that I heard on the album where I was like, that's got that funkadelic vibe all over it. How it's just kind of, yeah, very, very quirky song. Very cool. I mean, it's cool. Yeah, Susie agrees.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so that brings us to track 3, which is a track called Rock. Tell me about this one.
Nice. Yeah, so that one was like, I think when we were first putting the tracks together, it was your favorite track initially.
Oh, yeah.
Like the instrument parts. And that was like the first like more down tempo, more low key one that we worked on. And we started noticing that like the ballads were taking us a long
time.
And like we started getting, because our thing too, we're both like very harmonically driven. So like even on that last one, Rocket, you heard me harmonizing. We kind of looked at each other when we were a little harmony thing that we did. And it's always, we're always, talking about, get off my note, you're on my note,
Right.
and rock has a lot of that. It's just a lot of intricate vocal stuff, like super tight harmonies, you know what I mean? Very close together and trying to achieve that kind of thing. And it's really, instrumentally, it's very ethereal, but still having that kind of big beat, but still trying to be beautiful at the same time. So it's kind of more of like a mid-tempo, I guess.
All right. And Patavian, what's the theme of this song?
This song actually is about my difficulties on the road. It was not, although when you read the poem, you might not think that. That's kind of what it's really about. When I got on the road, I didn't want to be on the road. I was kind of fighting it. I was really, really being just obstinate about it. And I struggled a lot. I did not just flow into it because I'm George Clinton's granddaughter and I was raised in it. It was very difficult for me. And just adjusting and having kids and going back and forth and just that balance, it was really difficult. So that's what that song is about.
Yeah. All right, let's take a little peek at this one. This song is called Rock. Check this clip out.
Forth you go, rocking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
that was a little clip of Rock. Kate Eddie says, stunning, reminds me of the vocal dreaminess of Kate Bush.
Did you say that?
That's interesting because no, I didn't say it. It's interesting because a friend of ours is actually a pretty famous, world famous artist, fine artist, comic book artist, and muralist. This guy Brian Moss, and one of the other songs on the album, "Breathe," actually reminded him of Kate Bush. It was funny. Neither one of us really know much about Kate Bush. We had to like go back and be like, oh yeah, I remember Kate Bush. Like it's really funny. I think, but I do see now that like people say it. Oh yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that's very cool. You have lots of harmonies on that. I was just remembering those oohs. I know I did about 26 oohs on that.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of oohs on that.
Those harmonies took a minute.
I was gonna ask you if there was any other background vocalists. Is it just you two on this album and that's it?
Anybody the whole album is the two of us. Yeah, and she's doing all the leads and we're both doing all the backups.
Jeremy asked, have you considered putting the album out as a vinyl release? Have you got to that point yet?
Yeah, it's already mastered for vinyl, so we're gonna do a vinyl release as well. And what I was gonna say too is if because right now we have the CD and the poetry book, but people can request if they order it through the page that you have down there, Christopher. They can request a digital version as well. And they can as long as they provide me with email address to send it to, whatever, send them the link or however they want to get the link, that's fine. But yes, there will be a vinyl release, and we're actually planning several vinyl releases because, as you know, Christopher, I got like 24 albums under my name and then an additional maybe 30 that I've produced for other artists, and none of that stuff, or at least very little, a couple exceptions, very little of it is on vinyl, and so we're trying to get on top of that. A lot of it was about like choosing what comes out first, you know what I mean? Like, what are you going to put out first? You have this wealth of material to sort of draw from, but we have already started the process with this album, so yes, there will eventually be a vinyl release.
Well, all right, so let's go to the next song here, which is Cockroach. Tell me about this song.
So yeah, this is one of your favorites, right?
It is my favorite.
Oh, it's your favorite. Okay. And yeah, it's such a visceral kind of track, The beat, it's probably the first beat I made. It's probably the oldest thing on this album. So I probably made that sometime summer of 2019. And then didn't do anything else with it for years, just had it sitting, and I wasn't sure who it was going to go to, and then eventually I was like, okay, it's going to be on Patavian's album. And then I started adding this guy. I'll hold him up for you. This is the ARP Pro Soloist. This is the keyboard that Bernie Worrell played most of the iconic synthesizer work in Parliament Funkadelic. Most of it is not the Moog, it's the ARP, and it's this particular model, the Pro Soloist. So a lot of the stuff you're hearing on that track are those classic. Junie Morrison was also very well known for using on Funky Worm, Ohio Players, so you can really hear all of those classic kind of funky synth sounds on there, and it kind of mixes well with the like a buggy kind of cockroachy beat, So that's the story of the track, and I'll let Patavian talk about the lyrics.
This, man, I love this track. I when I was little and my grandfather would cut his albums and then release them, Dope Dogs and just all the albums, I would be so excited because I knew my dad was going to be on the album, and I just wait, and then dad would come on and my whole world would just light up like, oh my gosh, there he is, that's my dad. And so I hear so much of myself in this song. Like when I listen to it, I'm like, oh wow, I kind of sound like my dad. So I love this song. But
say who your dad is.
Oh, and my dad is Tracy Lewis, who I am named after. So yes.
Nice.
But the song is not, it's a very up-tempo, song, but the story behind it is actually rather quite sad. I'm a trauma, abuse, and grief counselor. And while I was doing my training, all of my peers who were in the training with me kind of just talked about their stories and, their background and what led them to being, a counselor and things like that. And so one of my classmates, she was in an abusive relationship, and she said one day, sometimes I used to just stare at the wall and wish that I were a cockroach. And we were all just like, what? Like, why would you wish that? Why would you want that? And she was like, if I could just be small enough and tiny enough to squeeze through the crack, I could escape. And it was just like, what? Like, what, and that really, like, that hit me really hard to hear her say something like that, to be something so disgusting, something that we loathe and hate. She wanted to be that so bad so she could, escape that relationship. And so I made this, there's actually a few songs on this album that are related to my trauma, abuse, and grief counseling. And so we made this song out of that story.
All right. Well, let's take a listen to it together. This is a clip from the song Cockroach. Check it out. Nice.
Favorite.
Yeah, that's who is making Danny, is that you making the grunts on the
Isn't it amazing?
that is definitely. Yeah, that's definitely, that's probably my favorite song as well, but I still love Eclipse. The lo-fi vibe of Eclipse is such a cool track. But yeah, that's probably my favorite too.
Nice.
Yeah, right. All right, let's take a listen. Well, let's first talk about the next track on here, Nightly News.
Yeah, Nightly News was a track that I was originally going to, I think, do for one of my solo albums. And it was called You Really Pissed Me Off. And it was going to be like this country song where it's like, you really pissed me off.
I don't think you told me that.
But I didn't end up keeping it, but I kept the vocal arrangement and molded it to the lyrics of that song. Because I liked it, but I didn't go too far with the lyrics. I did like a verse. And then I didn't know where to go from there. So I scrapped the lyrics, kept the vocal arrangement. And gave her the song, the track, and it is probably one of the more fun. Like, it's a little different than some of the stuff that you hear before it. So it's like a little bit more in, like, George calls it like a country and western song. Like, he was like, it's like a country song. It's definitely got a little more folksy elements in it, mixed in with the kind of obvious synthesized and digital elements and stuff. So yeah.
Again, this is one of those other trauma, abuse, and addiction stories. This song is setting the scene for some of, trauma and abuse that you kind of don't see. It's the scene, and everyone's kind of looking over it and not seeing that this is where everything is taking place. This is where everything is going down. It just looks like a regular room, but underneath it all, there's lots of cracks and lots of whispers and lots of secrets and lots of lies and lots of fear and all of that stuff. Again, from one of my classmates. And so I kind of took her pain and took her story and all of that and turned it into Nightly News.
So, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this once we get to the Red Balloon too, because, there is an overarching theme here, obviously, with just a lot of childhood trauma and things like that. And so we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. But this album definitely must have been therapy for you.
Yes, it was. That's kind of why I didn't want to do it. That's kind of why I didn't want to do it, because you kind of have to face that and put your emotion and your feelings all into that. And it's kind of like, I don't want to do it. So
Yeah. All
but
right.
it ended up being wonderful. So I'm glad I did.
Let's take a listen. Here's a clip from the album. This is the longest clip. It's the clip Nightly News. Got a minute here on this one. Check it out.
Who the hell keeps magazines by the TV? Anyway, but they're never really all gone down. Oh, always one up under the other, up under the covers, until there's a mountain spot somehow right over you.
And that was a little clip of Nightly News with so many different on this. And again, that's why I kind of prefaced before we even started down the journey here. I was like, don't get wrapped up into the guys go everywhere on this. It's really, really cool. So
Thank you.
all right, let's go to the next track on here, Clarendon. Tell me a little bit of this one.
Yeah, this was like when we finished this one. This is when I think both of us were like, okay, we're on to something. I felt like this was one that, and it's funny, this always happens when you're making albums. I think that as a producer or an artist, you fall in love with certain tracks, and they never end up being the ones that the fans like the best. But like, they're always these kind of weird esoteric ones that are like, oh, I love that one the best. And this is like one of the most esoteric ones. But it's one of those ones that's kind of, I based it a little bit on, it's supposed to give like a nostalgic, I grew up in the 80s. I'm an Xennial, the in between Gen X and Millennial Gen. And, it's that kind of 80s-ish, the chording. It's kind of like Time After Time a little bit in a way.
Right.
It's got some of that chording feel. It's got some of that type of instrumentation. And I always just liked the mood of that stuff. I remember hearing it as a kid and just being like, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. It's not what I really listen to, but there's something about it that I can taste that I really like. And so that's one of a few tracks that I had done in that, like that mold around that time. And that one we kept for Patavian's album. I actually sold several of those to several big artists, sort of as a ghostwriter, if you will.
Right.
And that one I kept for Patavian. And and that's a word I never even heard of, Clarendon, until you told me what it was. I didn't even know.
I believe that's probably the case for a lot of folks. So go ahead, David, tell people what a Clarendon is.
So this is social media. Clarendon is actually a filter on Instagram. And you probably don't have it anymore, but it's like when everybody was changing the filters and throwing these filters on themselves, and you have the sepia and all these different, you could just pick any filter you want and just kind of just throw it at yourself and be what you want to be, and change the background and change yourself and add eyelashes and take them away and have the makeup on. And it just really just was crazy to me how like presenting yourself in social media, you can really just choose what you want to be and make yourself look completely different and present yourself in a way that's really not authentic at all. And I just was really kind of taken aback by that. Like, everyone is using this one filter. At one point, it was the most used filter of that year. I don't remember what they did, some statistic on it. And I got sick of seeing it. Clarendon, this filter, Clarendon. I just was so tired of it. I was seeing this filter on everyone's face. So that's where that poem comes from.
All right, let's take a listen to it. Here's a little clip. This is Clarendon.
It's good, it's bad, no, it's maybe I don't know. Maybe just a couple more comments, and we'll have our minds made up. Minds made up, minds made up, minds made up. No one can keep a secret. The truth is, Clarendon isn't keeping you as good as you think it is.
Okay, see, now that I got the background on that, it makes a lot more sense. All right, let's go to the next track. Next song is Breathe. Tell me a little bit about this one.
Again.
Before you go, for those just joining us, we are joined by Parliament Funkadelic keyboardist Danny Bedrosian and Patavian, who is released her brand new album called The Red Balloon, which is it was co-written by Danny and his wife Patavian, and this is part of the Parliament Funkadelic family, and it is all good. And you guys, we're experiencing the album together, track by track. All right, I'm sorry. Breathe. Tell me about this album, or the song.
So yeah, it's the shortest one I think on the album, I think, and it kind of just comes and goes real quick. But it was one that was, I don't want to say an afterthought, but I think it might be the very last thing I cut for the album. I think it's the very last thing that we needed, like one more song, if I can remember correctly. And it's another one of those ones that saw a lot of changes. You know, again, when you're working on these songs for years. And this is the one that my good friend Brian was saying reminded him of Kate Bush. But again, he heard a whole different mix of it too, though, because then we changed, you know, because I was just going through all these sort of anal retentive or whatever, just these crazy moments of like, I have to change this, you know. So it sounds even different than it did like a month before it came out. But yeah, I like this track a lot. And then Patavian, tell them about the sorry, while you're drinking. Hey, talk.
And that's why I had to also make the clip a little bit shorter, because I was like, I can almost play the whole song, but I don't want to do that. Go ahead, Patavian. I'm sorry.
This is another one of those trauma, abuse, and addiction songs. One of my classmates talking about one of her domestic violence relationships, and she had mentioned that every time her husband walked into a room, she would hold her breath so long that she forgot to breathe, and she would almost pass out every time. And it's just like, what? Like, it's crazy to think that another person could make you feel that way and do that much damage to you, that you could forget to do something that's so natural, you know. And so that was another story that I just kind of just, you know, took and created poetry. I feel like I did that to a lot of my classmates' stories, just made art, you know, out of them, because it was really tough in that class for everyone to share, you know, their stories. And so I felt like I was doing them justice by making art out of them. So.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear this again. I've been listening to this album all day today too. So
thank you.
Here it is. Let's play a little clip from this song called Breathe. Check this out.
And then with little grace, a sliver of night, the night tarries. Through the entrance, but it dances that ends late. Maybe tomorrow I can.
And that was a little clip from the song Breathe. Yeah. All right. Man, we're just humming along through this album. All right, here's what is this is the title track of the album, of course. It is the title track, The Red Balloon. And I did hear some of the background. We're going to start with you, Patavian, on this one, because I did hear a little bit of the background story on the interview that you did on Danny's podcast as well. But I want you to start this one off and share the story of the background of this.
So the Red Balloon, this song is actually about me. When I was 3, I was put into foster care, and it just was so, it was a last minute thing. I wasn't supposed to be in there, but I was supposed to be going back to California, and that didn't work out, and they needed somewhere for me to go, and they put me in foster care, you know. And so while I was in foster care, I was just in there by myself. My brother didn't come with me. And so I was just waiting like for somebody to come get me, because now I don't have my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother, my father, or my brother. It's just me, you know, in foster care. And so my mother or my grandmother came, and for I think my 4th birthday, either my 3rd or 4th, I either went in when I was 2 and I turned 3, or I was 3 and turned 4. I don't really remember, but she brought a balloon for me, and I thought that I was going home that day. I'm like, you're here, let's go, let's get out. And it wasn't that day. She had to leave, and I just was like, how much longer am I gonna have to stay here? Is anyone ever gonna come get me? And so that was really tough, because even as a toddler, you're watching people come in and out and in and out, and it's like, when is it gonna be my turn? Am I gonna be in here for a long time? I have no grandparents, I have no parents. That's how you feel, you know, and you don't know that they're on the other side working to get you out. And so that, you know, that's what that one was about. I think the hardest thing for me was just being separated from my brother. It was like my grandparents already had my brother, and I was left with my father. And so then we got reunited, and it was like, oh, you're here, we're together. And then I got ripped away, and I had to go back to LA, and that didn't work out. I'm in foster care, and now I don't have him again. And I think it was like the most traumatizing and most devastating thing that has ever happened to me in my life. So that's where the Red Balloon comes from, because I think that it has, like, that moment in my life has really influenced so much in my life, the way I parent and my character and just my fears and just everything about me. So that's what that's about.
Is it a little too personal to ask how you ended up in foster care? What was the circumstances?
Oh man, I don't know like the 100%, like the full story, but like it had to do with state benefits. And like in order for my other grandparents to get state benefits, they needed proof. They were like being audited or something. I don't know. And then before I got there, they disappeared, they ran, and then I got caught up in the middle of it. And at this point, I can't go back to either one of my parents. My mother, she picked up and left like in the middle of the night. So they were like, well, you're not the legal guardian, so they can't come back to you. They have to, the law says this and this and this. So we have to put her in foster care until you legally go through these steps to gain custody. And thank goodness the judge and whoever was behind all of that, they knew my grandfather, because they almost didn't get me. They were almost like, she's about to be in the system forever if we don't just kind of push this along. So I was one of the cases that they kind of pushed along, like, listen, George, we're just gonna let you have her. Just sign this real quick and we're just gonna let you have her. And so I got really lucky.
Yes, that's definitely. Again, for those just joining us, we are being joined by Patavian, who is the granddaughter of George Clinton. And of course, she has also performed with Parliament Funkadelic. And she's also married to this illustrious musician, the gentleman that's behind her, Mr. Danny Bedrosian, who is the keyboardist for Parliament Funkadelic and has been for many, many. How many years have you been playing keyboards for Parliament now?
22 in the band.
Oh, wow, I was a year off.
Yeah.
Man, yeah.
Half my life. Literally half my life.
All right. So did you want to share anything unique about this track, Danny, before we play?
Just that it is certainly a unique track. I mean, it was definitely written for a rapper initially. And I had a very specific rapper that I had asked to write some tracks for. And this was just one of them. But it had such a melodic little chorus part. And it kind of reminded me of, like, it was almost like Eurythmics with, like, kind of like a more modern trappy kind of thing on it. And like the tempo is it's like a weird tempo for the beat. And so, like, I wanted to kind of make that the title track to kind of set it apart from the other songs and give it its own feel.
Yeah. All right, here it is. There's a little clip of the title track of this, The Red Balloon. Here we go.
She rocks back on her heel, 1, 2, 3, then up on her toes and into the car. Yeah. This one's small and gray and quiet. The cars, they always come. The cars, they always come. But the cars don't come for me. Whoa.
Man, yeah, okay. All right. I actually was able to hear a little bit of Bernadette Cooper in that spin on the end there. That little Madamex climax type of vocal sway there. You got all right. This is really cool that you guys were able to put this together, just the two of you, because I mean that must have definitely helped with a lot of the
like the introspective nature and the kind of like working together and being able to like really go through a number of different feels and styles and moods. Yeah, it really helps when it's sort of just two people doing it that are so close as we are too. Like we're able to kind of do it subconsciously and move through, you know. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean I could tell that, you know, the focus was not just, you know, hey, let's put music to poetry. That I could tell that there was a lot of thought process in you know, being able to also, you know, capture the emotions of what's being said. And it was just kind of like, you know, not worry about it sounding like this or sounding like that. It's like, let's make sure we appropriately capture whatever it is that you're writing about, which is, yeah, it kind of definitely helps with the storytelling part of it too, which is, you know, one of the reasons why we want to kind of go through these tracks. All right, you only got 3 more to go. Next one is Stained Glass. Tell me a little bit about that. Whoever wants to start.
This is my favorite. It's my favorite one. Of course, nobody else gives a damn about it, but it's my favorite one. And it's like, it's got this like proto-classical thing that I really like. You know, P-Funk would do a lot of that stuff, like the Bernie Worrell influence stuff that has that kind of classical vibe sort of in it. You know, the Bach kind of feel, Chopin kind of feel, or, you know, and so it definitely exudes that. It wasn't my favorite when we started it, but when we finished it, I was like, oh, this is my favorite one. I just like the emotion of it. I like the way it moves. I like the moods of it. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that one. I'll let Patavian say the rest.
This is another one that I wrote on the road, and it was another one of those songs that was kind of just talking about how difficult road life was for me, but specifically the difference in like my relationships with people off the road and then my relationships with people on the road. That was not so easy for me, you know, because I did everything I could to like not be in the band. Like, no, I'm not going to go on the road. I'm not going to go on the road. And I had family members and brothers and cousins who were already in the band. And then by the time I got there, I kind of thought that the way things would be with people and my relationships with people would go one way. And then they did not go like that at all. And I got to see people in a different light. And I was kind of talking about my fragility, like in those moments and at that time. So.
All right. Very, very cool. Let's take a listen to this little clip of Stained Glass. Check it out.
Jesus had that place, our place. You were to me by memory, picturesque and dressing. Now you will sift through my fingers like a dry so long ago when you needed strength, you needed like my strength, my life, but your frame is taking life.
Yeah, it's a little clip of Stained Glass. There's going on. It kind of that clip was probably the first clip out of them that was maybe a little bit of a disservice because we kind of came in on a roundup, but you guys will get it. Let me just say, you guys can pick up this album. You probably have seen it scrolling across the bottom, but I'll also share it for you as well. You can go to funkatopia.com/Patavian, and you'll actually see we've set up a page here that's got the album cover. It tells you a little bit about the album as well. And you can actually pick up the album and the poetry book as well. And give you the payment option down here. It's funkatopia.com/Patavian. So if you're interested in this album, that's where you go to check it out. Yeah, Lisa says I really like this one. Love the old school P-Funk vocals. Yeah, it's yeah. Susie is a fan. Susie.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about. We got two more to go. What about You Won't Say Nothing? Now this one is this one's a cover, right? So tell me about this one.
Yeah, it's a cover. So I did an album that was like for just my Patreon patrons only, and it was made up of like P-Funk covers, mostly from the Northern Soul era. And it was an album called Dr. Music, and I worked with a few guys in the band on it. Of course, Patavian is really the main person who I worked on with it. And who else was on? Lige, Gabe Gonzalez, Benny Cowan, Garrett Scheider. There's a few people that helped me with it. And this was initially one of the tracks on it. And we ended up keeping it and saving it for Patavian's album because it's written by her grandparents. It's written by her grandfather, George Clinton, and her grandmother, Vivian Lewis, who went by Tamala Lewis, and that was her like stage name. And had, you know, a few very well-known Northern Soul singles that are highly sought after 45s from the 60s. And this is probably her most famous one, You Won't Say Nothing, that featured her and George singing, and, you know, that they wrote together. And I thought that'd be a fun one to do, you know, and this is the only song that has one other person on the album other than myself and Patavian. That's Lige Curry, great bass player from Parliament Funkadelic. He played the bass on this track.
All right, Patavian, do you have anything to add before we play this clip?
I mean, he summed it up very nicely, but it is an honor to be able to sing something that was, you know, written by my grandmother, because I don't really remember her. I think she passed away when I was really, really young. So to be able, and I'm not really familiar with a lot of her music. So when I did this, it was definitely an honor.
All right, let's check it out. Here's a little clip of You Won't Say Nothing. Here we go.
You won't say yes, no, won't say no, won't say nothing. Either say you believe me or you release me. Please say something. But you won't say yes, no, won't say no, won't say nothing. Either say you believe me or you release me. You say something. You won't say yes. No, you won't say no, no.
And that was a little clip right there of You Won't Say Nothing. Man, that's really, really cool. I mean, I love when you can dig back and, you know, rehash and revisit some of these old classics that, I mean, I didn't even remember hearing that song until I had to like re-listen and it's just old classics. And of course, who better to bring out the old classics than the documentarian of Parliament Funkadelic, Danny Bedrosian, of course. All right. Now, I didn't understand the title of this. This is the last track on the album, but the name of the track, the name of the track is Forever Never Ended at an R.
Hmm.
Is that the full title, or did it get cut off? Or I'm trying to figure out the meaning of this title. Help me out here.
That is the title of the track, and the word forever, the last letter is R.
Okay. So, but explain to me what I got that part, but what is
So the word forever literally ends at R, but forever, the concept of forever, it never ends. So I wrote this song when I was 15 years old. You know,
okay.
So this was me trying to be like, poets write like this, and love sounds like this, and it feels like this. It was supposed to be like the most dramatic and complicated, like this is the beginning of my poetry writing. So I was trying to make it be like so very like poetry is this.
Got it. All right.
But you know, they saw something in her from a very young age, though. They were seeing, I mean, she had clever wordplay, much like her father and her grandfather and her grandmother for a long time. So I think this is kind of like hearkening back at that. But this is the other one this is Patavian's other favorite on the album. And I remember when the final mix, she listened to the final mix. And, you know, I had to run these mixes by her, you know, like if she wasn't happy with anything, I was going back to the drawing board. And that was a big part of the 4 to 6 months of final mixes and mastering. And I had her listen to it in the headphones, I had her listen to it in the speakers, and listen to it on these speakers and in the car. And, you know, you got to get all the different experiences. And she listened to the final mix of this one and she wept, you know, and she was crying. Yeah. And I was like, okay, we got it. You know, that I knew that we were in with that one. And this was another one of those tracks that was initially for somebody else, but I kept the piano and then changed the arrangement and redid the whole arrangement for her with these effects and the little bass and the things that are going on in there. And so, yeah, I like it as a closer. You know what I mean? And it's one of my favorites too. But you know, I remember her feeling really, really strongly about this song, and so I felt like it was really appropriate to close with.
All right, let's listen to the clip of the final song on this album, Forever Never Ended at an R. Check it out.
And wish to never, ever exhale. For if this separation is all too together, when your eyes fall, I would drift and grow weary in reality, and hope that you wake me not of a 4-letter possibility. Thoughts of hindrance from this fantasy uprises a bland vomit of non-existence. Words can be
And that was a clip of Forever Never Ended and an R. That's it. We get it. We made it through the whole entire album. Listen to the little man. And I just want to say, thank you guys for coming on here and kind of, sharing this journey. This album has been kind of, from what I remember was like 9 years in the making, or it's some kind of crazy. I know you guys finally started putting the stuff together like around, pre-COVID or whatever, but man, that's just incredible. And what is the one thing, I'll let each of you answer this question before we cut you loose. What is the one thing you kind of want people to take away with this album? Because there's really a lot. There's a lot here, because there's a lot of background for you, Patavian, with all the the trauma and kind of having to go back and relive some of those stories too, which has got to be tough enough. And then on top of that, Danny kind of sitting down and trying to capture everything that you wanted. So I'll let each of you kind of tell people what you want them to walk away with this album.
You want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I think this album for me really was about just survival, all of the trauma and all of that stuff. I just kind of hid from it for so long, and that's why I didn't want to put anything out. I didn't want to turn the poetry into anything. And so when we finally made this album, it was like, all right, you need to face it and just allow it to be beautiful, because it can be beautiful. And I think that this was like one of the first times Danny really showed me that you can take pain and trauma and tell a story in a beautiful way. And as you can see, a lot of the music doesn't really, the tempo and the flow of the song does not reflect the actual story at all. And so it's just survival and just coming out of it on the other end with something that's beautiful. I really want people to, now that they know what a lot of these songs are about, to just know that you can get through it and you can come out the other side with something very positive and something very beautiful. So
pretty awesome. Danny?
It's hard to follow that up. One thing I will say is when I, started compiling what the music was going to be on this album, one thing I did want to focus on, and one thing I do tend to focus on, is unless I'm being told otherwise, to make it as original and unique and special to the artist as it can possibly be, and give people something that they're not attuned to. To give people something that they're not maybe ready for, and to give people a taste of something that, I didn't know I'd like that, but I do. I don't want people to always be comfortable. And then I'm trying to make AI's job as hard as possible. So I want to create original, organic, interesting, weird when it needs to be, palatable when it needs to be, impactful as often as possible music that the world can take and put in their pocket and think about when they need to think about it, and put in that special place for when they need it,
Yeah, and I think you did all of that effectively, because it took me a couple listens to kind of, the first listen through, it's kind of like you're like your guard's kind of up, so you have these preconceived notions about what you're going to hear and how melodies and things should be, and then as you kind of let that wall down and just kind of absorb it for what you guys are doing, it creates a totally different experience. So yeah, I think you accomplished it well.
And let me thank you so much.
And again, it's an honor to have you guys on the show, and the album is super cool. If you want to pick up the album, it's been scrolling there at the bottom, funkatopia.com/Patavian. And I think I saw a question here. Ken Jerome just joined, said, where can we buy it? You can buy it right there, funkatopia.com/Patavian. You can't stream it right now. I think you're trying to keep the money out of the streamers' pockets right now at this point, right?
Yes, it will eventually be available. I mean, you can get it digitally from us. It's not available via any streaming services yet. what we've been doing and what I've been doing, my model for the past 2 years with our independent releases has been to sort of give credence to the Patreon first and then physical market second. So now we're kind of pushed into we're doing the physical market now, and it has been selling very well, I'm happy to say. And pretty soon, probably in the next couple months or so, it will be available on streaming services. But right now, because I have a lot of touring coming up, and we're promoting this album on the dates. Can I push the dates too, Christopher? Is that possible?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So Secret Army, my trio, which is myself and Lige Curry and Benzel Cowan, we're all the rhythm section of Parliament Funkadelic. We're going on the road doing some southeastern dates this weekend, right? Coming weekend, we got Friday, February 21st is at Must Be Nice in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then Saturday, February 22nd is at District Live in the Plant Riverside District in Savannah, Georgia. And then Sunday, February 23rd is at the Inglewood Lounge in Nashville, Tennessee. So, yeah. Oh, and if I can say one more thing, the 20th, coming up even before that, I'm doing a lecture about the book, the authorized P-Funk song reference, at the Fall for the Book Festival in Fairfax, Virginia, at noon at George Mason University at their library in the reading room. And I'll be doing a lecture all about the making of that book and the history of P-Funk and all that stuff. So you guys can check that out too if you're in the Fairfax, Virginia, DMV area. So
Yep, there it is. And that link is still available, funkatopia.com/Danny. And it will take you right to the Amazon page to pick up this amazing book. If you have interest in the history of P-Funk, surprisingly, even though this book is very, very thick, he barely really scratches the surface, and he knows good and well. He knows good and well that's the case. If you really want to get like some of the core history of Parliament Funkadelic and some of the discography and stuff, this is the important part, the authorized P-Funk song reference. And I'm glad that you finally got this album out, Patavian. This is really, really cool. That new album is called The Red Balloon. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm round of applause for the one and only Danny Bedrosian and Patavian and her brand new album, The Red Balloon. Thank you guys, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you, Christopher. Thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate you.
And I will maybe I'll see you on Friday night. I'm still here on that fence, but if I can figure somewhere to stay in Charlotte, down that way, I don't necessarily need to stay. It's one night, but I'm doing what I can to make it out to the show. It's only like a 4-hour drive, so it's not like, or 3.5-hour drive. It's not that bad. So
Okay, nice. Oh, we'd love to see you, man. Come on through. I know you'll love the show.
yeah, put my name at the door.
Okay, I got you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Danny Bedrosian and Patavian, thank you guys so much. Again, funkatopia.com/Patavian and pick up that album. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good night, everyone. Hope you had a good time. Mr. Christopher, Funkatopia, signing out. Good night.